So, first up to bat for the 2 o'clock session is Dr. Jim Forte, Professor of Social Work.
Good afternoon. As you heard, I'm Jim Forte, Professor in the Great Department of Social Work. And today I'm going to talk about my study about the love-hate relationship between social work and scientific theory. I'll also preview my scholarship identifying some strategies to repair this damaged relationship. I'll refer at times to my own life history to illustrate this development of my interest in theory. Also, I'm going to attempt to answer the question asked by many friends and colleagues and my dean, what did I do during my sabbatical? First, though, forgive me, I misunderstood. I thought that we were expected to model our presentations on Mr. Ed Talks. I watched every episode of Mr. Ed that I could. And this morning my wife told me it was TED Talks, not Mr. Ed Talks.
Hello, I'm Mr. Ed.
So I'm going to have to do the best I can under these circumstances. I want to thank Clifton and Graduate Studies for the faculty mini grant and Salisbury University for the sabbatical leave. They provided me the time and energy to pursue my scholarship, something I can't do as well when I don't have that time. Oops, how'd those slides get there? That's not what I did during my sabbatical. And thanks to the other supporters of my work, especially on the left, those are my homies with the baccalaureate program directors group, and the recent and former chairperson. They have large entourages. The entourages are following them there on the right. And I appreciate all the work the librarians did. The Council on Social Work Education, that's the accrediting body for social work. And they are mandating that social work education programs help prepare students so they can demonstrate 10 competencies in the form of a whole range of practice behaviors. And I believe that scientific theories and theorizing skills will help students climb this pinnacle towards achievement of those competencies. They probably see this Mayan temple as bringing them up to human sacrifice, but I'm trying to convince them otherwise. I'm also starting from the position, the pragmatist position, that theories are tools. And social workers need a wide range of tools in a big toolbox if they're going to face and meet all the challenges that they need to meet. Just to give you, to orient you to my thinking of theory, I'll talk a little bit about some of the major functions and illustrate them as I've come to use them in my own life. First, theory helps us describe and answer questions such as what's going on here and who is that wild kid at the end of that couch. Theory helps us categorize and ask questions like, how am I supposed to put this stuff in the right piles? These are not the questions I help social work students learn, but give you the idea. Theory helps us predict, forecast future patterns. Based on our current knowledge, it might help us answer an 8th grader's question, what's next, and will my rank in the school system always be number 2? Fourth, theory helps us explain behavioral and social puzzles. This is a X-rated one, sorry. Such as, why did those large people keep pointing that thing and flashing the light when my clothes are off? Fifth, and very importantly for practitioners, theory helps guide action, helping us figure out what to do, how to assess, how to intervene. For example, for the young painter in this slide, theory could indicate that the paint should go on the wall, but this artist is having a tough time figuring out where the wall is. Finally, scientific theory helps us communicate. It helps facilitate quick and precise use of language. Here's just one little illustration. If I learn baby talk, will I have more fun? So I'm I had a hunch based on my practice experiences, discussion with students, presentations at the local, regional, and national conferences, that social workers are not very fond of theory, even though we consider theory-practice integration one of our favorite terms. So with the support of the faculty grant and the sabbatical, I've been able to study that a little bit, and I'm just going to briefly review. I'm deciding whether social workers have a love stance. That's the image on the left, couple harmoniously sitting on a table, or they have a hate stand. This actually isn't the image for hate. My grandmother would want me to show you that. This is the image for indifference. I looked at a variety of resources that document our profession's identity and mission, and the main point I'm making here is that when we categorize those, many in the mixed, the largest number in the indifferent or hate. So the question, does our profession affirm the value of theory or show indifference or hate, at least based on all these various sources, classic statements, mission statements, our resources, our library of resources, our professional sections, I conclude tends toward neglect or hate. A second part of this, I took a look at 31 studies. Same question. Each of the studies examined the degree to which practitioners and other social workers made use of theory, could articulate the theoretical knowledge that was guiding them. The 12 quantitative studies, 15 qualitative, 4 mixed, 1931 to 2013 across 5 different countries using a variety of methods. And you see here even a more dramatic portrait of indifference or antipathy. So when we count and do the grand tally, 14, some of the studies had more than one finding, 14 statements of hate, 16 mixed, 4 love. Ideally, from my point of view, social workers would marry theorists. They would see the value of a reciprocal and caring partnership between theory and practice. Theory would inform practice, and practice would inform theory. However, most commonly, I'm concluding based on those 2 different tables, social workers are giving this called the 4-finger purse sign. Che cavolo dici. What the heck are you asking me to do with this? And in some cases, they're giving theory the chin flick sign. That's non mi frega. Back off, I don't give a damn about your stinking theory. Why might this be? I think it's unfortunate. Hopefully we can change this. Based on what I've read, I see 2 major explanations. Many practitioners and others don't think theory makes sense, scientific theory makes sense, and think it's useless. First, they don't see it as making sense. Theory is presented as a language, but a language that's full of jargon, odd grammatical and rhetorical conventions, and translation seems very, very hard. I'm going to read you an example. There'll be a test afterwards during our break, and we'll see who can actually translate this. This comes from Ludwig von Bertalanffy speaking about systems theory. Just shared this with my students. A consequence of the existence of general system properties and the appearance of structural similarities or isomorphisms in different fields. There are correspondences in the principles that govern the behavior of entities that are intrinsically widely different. Got that? False. Ernest Greenwood, an expert on the profession of social work, agrees. This is a tough thing for many social workers, having a hard time translating the language that's used by academic theorists as they write and publish their theoretical thinking. Second, theory as generated in the academy is often not seen as useful. Social workers consider it too abstract, stated in formal terms instead of the kind of narratives we like. And it's hard for them to imagine how they would actually use this knowledge to solve problems that they're facing in everyday practice. So what are we going to do? I'm also previewing a couple of repair strategies. Assuming that this relationship is damaged, how could we start to repair it? Thomas Kuhn, a philosopher of science, thought translation is needed between those who are making use of different paradigms or theoretical traditions. In my one of the books that I finished over sabbatical, focusing on multi-theoretical social work, I identified 7 different tools that students and novice social workers could use to start translating this complex theory into language they could understand and grasp. I'm not going to go into those, but I've been trying this out with a colleague on the planet Triskelion, and these universal translation devices have been working very well for me anyway. We'll see how they do. And the students seem to be responding. Second strategy, they need tools to transform theoretical knowledge from the way it's presented by academics, typically, by us in college, into forms that are useful. I think of this in terms of learning a whole variety of skills for deconstructing and reconstructing theory, and practicing those skills over and over and over again. An ethnographer, Chambliss, studied some of the great swimmers of all time, and he discovered many had great genetic dispositions and some of the physical attributes. But the main thing is they mastered a set of skills that they did over and over and over again until they had this holistic approach to swimming that made them champions. So the second book I finished up focused on practical theorizing, identifies 21 different theorizing skills and helps the readers learn how to use those to actually deconstruct or take apart theory and the elements, and then to reconstruct it for use in a variety of practical situations. I've been using these theorizing skills. I think I'm getting in good shape, and I hope to win an award soon in my own swimming competitions. You're seeing some first-rate Photoshop work here, by the way. So let me conclude. I believe in the possibility of reconciliation. Social workers can change their emotions of ambivalence, indifference, and hate into those of love. We can move from polarities to unity. You may know the great philosopher Yogi Berra. He said, he summarized the position of polarity. In theory, there's no difference between theory and practice. In practice, there is. There's a constant struggle between theory and practice. I like baseball. I even once hit a triple for Hometown Laundry in the playoffs. However, Yogi Berra's emphasis on differences won't lead to a happy union or relationship between theorists and practitioners. I turn instead to Jane Addams. She's my #1 role model. You don't have to read this whole thing. I'll briefly summarize it. I often ask WWJD, what would Jane Addams do? She would call for us to translate and transform knowledge for practical use in ameliorating problems and helping those with the most needs and advancing democracy. So I'm going to carry on Jane Addams' work and try to be a matchmaker and marital counselor, and spread the news to my students, colleagues, and profession. Here's my message. Theory is useful. Theoretical knowledge and theorizing are very relevant to social work and to plan change projects. Mastery of theory and theorizing skills will ease the ascent to the peak of professional excellence. I'm hoping that my students and those that like this message will try a different gesture. This is the kiss gesture of love. Thanks to my supporters. I'm very fortunate to get some forwards written by some really good theoretical thinkers in social work. Thanks to the family. And for those of you who want more to read, first book's coming out in January. That's helping readers translate theory for use. I in negotiations now. We're hoping Bruce Willis will star in the movie version as me, and Susan Sarandon's going to play my wife. The second book should be out in February. This provides lessons in using these theorizing skills. It looks like John Malkovich will be my part, and Helen Mirren may play my wife. In case you came in late, my name is Forte, James Forte. Thank you.